So today we have Miss Stanton and Mr. Smith here to speak with you. Miss Stanton is Joseph Stanton's mom, and Mr. Smith is a traumatic brain injury survivor. So please give them your respects.
Good afternoon, Riverwood Longhorns. I want to give you fair warning, there are prizes after my presentation, so you have to listen really carefully so you can also be a winner. I wanted to first begin by thanking each and every one of you for your love and support of our family over these last 11 months. I love seeing all the Team Joseph shirts when I drop Gabrielle off for school in the morning. I'm really especially excited about this week that Mrs. Carney has planned for you, studying about brain injuries and what you can do to help prevent them. You see, last May, we were like any other family in Kingwood, enjoying life as we always had. We had just attended a wedding, and we were all dressed up, having a great time, but Joseph especially felt studly in his new suit, as you can see him here. 5 days later, Joseph was enjoying his first day of summer following his sophomore year in high school. Joseph has played about every sport in Kingwood, beginning when he was a toddler on the soccer fields and year-round swimming at age 4. He focused his high school career on football and swimming. He had just finished varsity off-season training and was in the best shape of his life. He had just led the Kingwood Park Panthers to their second consecutive state swimming championship. In 2 years, he captured 5 gold medals and anchored 2 state record-setting relays. He earned 8 All-American awards, but unfortunately received his first academic All-American award while in the neurosurgical intensive care unit. Letters from colleges were flooding our mailbox. And on the first day of summer, Joseph went to his first 5-hour swim practice and worked a shift as a lifeguard at Kingwood Country Club late that afternoon. He came home, ate dinner, and decided to take a short ride on his longboard in the neighborhood. As he was going out the door, I reminded him to be careful, telling him that his football coach had just invested a lot of time in him during off-season football training, and also reminded him that he promised a swim coach that he would compete at the Junior National Swimming Championships in California in July. As was typical, he rolled his eyes at me, cocked his head back, and closed the door behind him. 15 minutes later, I received a phone call that a neighbor had found Joseph unconscious on the street, and an ambulance was en route. Joseph was alone. No one even challenged him. He wasn't at a skate park, and he was a very, very athletic kid. He had played football since he was 7 years old and knew how to take falls. But this fall was too much. This is how Joseph ended his first day of summer. From his 6'1" stature, he simply hit the back of his head on the asphalt pavement, but suffered a massive traumatic brain injury, also known as a TBI, resulting in his becoming comatose on a respirator, clinging to life. We have almost lost Joseph 4 different times, but by God's grace, he is still with us. Here you see a close-up of the life support that kept him alive for 6.5 weeks in the neurosurgical intensive care unit. There's a respirator breathing for him, a C-collar protecting his neck, and electrodes monitoring all of his vital signs. You also see a very large bolt that was placed into his skull to monitor the intracranial pressures to alert the doctors if he was having yet another brain bleed. It was a horrific 6.5 weeks watching Joseph hooked up to all the life support, suffering so much. And all of this because Joseph didn't think wearing a helmet was cool. When we arrived at the emergency room, the doctors didn't even want to operate on Joseph, saying that there was no hope. Our priest came to the hospital, anointed him, and gave him last rites. But the priest also asked for the Lord to send a miracle, and less than an hour later, a new neurosurgeon appeared at his bedside saying, "Let's operate." So after 8.5 hours letting in the intensive care unit, they took Joseph to the operating room and removed nearly half of the back of Joseph's skull and placed it in a freezer to be reattached at a later time. The bone that was removed included a portion of his forehead to within 1 inch of his left eye. This helped lower the pressure on his brain. Joseph's head might look normal to you. It looks like it just has a bunch of staples in it, but it's not. The left side of his skull is normal, but what you're seeing on the right side is strictly his brain covered by skin. And all of this because Joseph didn't think wearing a helmet was cool. Here is a picture of Joseph emerging from the coma. A coma is defined as being asleep without feeling pain. Once Joseph's eyes started to open, the doctors considered him out of a coma. But sadly, we couldn't tell a difference because he couldn't respond to us in any way and is still considered minimally conscious. You can see in the picture where the swelling is starting to go down and the skull that is left. Joseph went to a phase called brainstorming, where his vital signs went crazy and looked like he was going to die from very high heart rates and blood pressure and body temperatures that couldn't even be controlled. He had to drip refrigerated IV fluid through his veins to even get it to come down 1 degree. There were many nights at the hospital where they had done all they could do to control the storms, and it was only by prayer that he survived. 4 months after the accident, the swelling on the brain was pretty much gone. You could see the enormous deficit left from his skull being removed. We had to learn to wash his hair by putting our fingertips down into the hole and scrubbing very gently, because there was nothing under that flap of skin but his brain. And all of this because Joseph didn't think helmets were cool. Finally, in November, 5 months after his accident, Joseph had another brain surgery to reattach his skull. It was also a very risky surgery. As you can see, the blood draining off his brain through the catheter at the back of his head. We went back out to the Woodlands to a neuro rehab hospital and spent another little bit of time there before the insurance company got tired of footing the bill for his hospital stays and told us we just needed to take him home. There's no more hope. We could take him to a nursing home. But we discovered a program at a place called the Institute for Rehabilitation and Research right here in Houston, also known as TIER. That's where Congresswoman Giffords is. It has a program for minimally conscious brain-injured patients. Joseph celebrated his 17th birthday there at TIER, 7.5 months after his accident. And I can promise you, it wasn't where he ever imagined he'd have to celebrate his birthday. Regardless, for our family, it was a true celebration of his life. We are very happy Joseph is at TIER. He is receiving excellent speech therapy, occupational, physical, music therapy, recreational therapy from professionals who all have specialty training in brain injuries. He can sit unassisted for 30 to 40 seconds at a time, but not consistently. We don't see it every day. He passed 1 of 3 parts of a swallow test, so he has started eating tiny bites of medium consistency foods. He can stand with a lot of support from the therapists, but he lives in a wheelchair. Here, they are practicing standing Joseph on his knees. And here is a close-up of Joseph's head today, where you can still see the deficit, where the muscles at his left temple wasted away, so he has a pretty good sized deficit. You can also still see that he has a trach. He was able to get off the ventilator about 1.5 months after his accident, but he still isn't completely able to clear his own secretions, so he still has a hole in his throat and his windpipe so that we can suction him with a machine if needed. And all of this because Joseph didn't think wearing a helmet was cool. Here is how we wish Joseph would have been able to spend last summer with his 3 sisters at an Aerosmith concert, or having fun cruising around Kingwood with his new driver's license, or going to a 2-day football practice, or talking on his cell phone. But because Joseph chose not to put on a helmet to protect his brain when he was skateboarding, We don't know if he'll ever be able to do any of those things again. But some of you are sitting there thinking, oh, this is just a very freak accident. Well, that kid must have just been really clumsy. But I can promise you neither are true. Joseph was an elite athlete, and we've learned of numerous TBIs and even deaths from skateboard accidents since Joseph's accident. I hope after hearing Joseph's story, you will always, always wear a helmet for whatever activity you're going to participate in. You need to protect your brain as you ride a bike or scooter, if you skate, if you rollerblade, especially if you skateboard, or even riding a horse. In addition to protecting yourself, as stud 8th graders, you have a unique opportunity to change the way other kids look at helmets and thus protect themselves as well. You can have a huge influence on the way underclassmen, especially elementary students, look at wearing helmets too. It can be a good example, or you can go up to them and talk to them about Joseph's accident and what they can do to protect themselves. So please, please go out there and show your courage by wearing a helmet every time you get on something with wheels or a horse. You only have one brain, and you need to protect it. There is no such thing as a brain transplant like there is with kidneys, lungs, or even a heart. Be bold. Wear a helmet and bug your friends until they wear a helmet too. You just might save their lives. Okay, if you listen real carefully, you might be the proud owner of an autographed helmet. We had Clutch here at lunchtime. I understand you guys had a really fun time with him. He has on the coolest helmet ever. I think it will protect about half of this room. It's so big. But if you were listening, you can tell me the answers to these questions. And I'm going to have you raise your hand, and if I see your hand go up first, I'll ask you to stand and answer the question for us. So, we have a Team Joseph helmet. Oh my gosh, Kim Kardashian helmet. Okay, this one is going to go to the first person who raises their hand that can tell me what TBI stands for. On the back row? Oh, no, never mind. The white shirt right here, let me have you stand up. That's you. What does TBI stand for? Traumatic brain injury. You are the proud owner of a Kim. Do you know how much she charges for that autograph? Thank you. I can't wait to see you around Kingwood in that helmet. Okay. And this one is by the Houston Rockets. Lots of autographs on there. By show of hands, what is the condition called when TBI patients have really high heart rate, blood pressure, and temperature? And that green long sleeve team doesn't show what it is.
Brainstorming?
Brainstorming, that is it. Thank you. Who can tell me how many gold medals Joseph won at the state swimming championship? Short sleeve, green shirt, stand up for me. Thank you. 5, you are right. Thank you. Okay. 3 more. I did not give a specific